Cinema Classics is sponsored by WCBE 90.5 FM, Columbus, Ohio. Produced by John DeSando, Cinema Classics can be heard online at wcbe.org and Thursdays at 8:01 p.m.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Mary Urena.
And this is Cinema Classics. Mary.
John.
We have a movie, now and then we just really want to have something that might be a good movie. All right, and so we've chosen The Lesson today. And I'm hoping that it's still around by the time we broadcast. If not, perhaps people can look for it at streaming.
Yes.
But right now it's playing at least at 2 theaters locally.
Yes, it is.
And it stars Richard E. Grant and Julie Delpy, two of my favorite actors.
Very good actors, and I would say the whole cast, which is a very small cast, there are only 4 main characters and 1 supporting character, is very, very strong.
It reminds me, did we do The Master Gardener?
We did.
And it reminds me, it also had flowers, because there's a flower motif in this, the rhododendron.
Yes.
And I'd be darned if I could find anything that made the correlation with rhododendron. Do you remember how they wove that into this?
In my estimation, it is reflective of the nature of the family dynamics. We have J.M. Sinclair, who's a very famous author, his wife Helene, their son Bertie, and we learned that their oldest son Felix died a few years prior to us joining the story by suicide. And the family dynamic is very taut and very sealed and very controlled by J.M. Sinclair, but it's strangling all of them.
Good.
And the rhododendron, which is also referred to as the tree rose, its root system will strangle out anything growing near it.
Yeah.
So that was my impression of the metaphor of why the
Good.
rhododendron.
Yeah. I think azaleas are a part of the rhododendron family, so that's the only one I knew.
Well, we used to have a rhododendron in front of my childhood home.
Oh, great.
Not a reflective of our family dynamics at all, but I actually loved it. It was beautiful.
You mentioned J.M. Sinclair as the patriarch of the family, and that's played just perfectly by an always snooty Richard E. Grant. I don't care how kind he can be. There is something about his persona that is just...
He definitely can play snootiness quite well.
He does. And I think he was in Can You Forgive Me?
Yes, in fact, he was nominated for an Academy Award in a supporting role for that.
Yeah, most recently. And some people have compared this to the old Michael Caine Sleuth.
Okay.
And that's a while ago. We're talking 1972.
Yes,
That's where Caine, the young man, comes to visit the elderly writer played by Laurence Olivier.
Okay.
And Olivier has all kinds of insidious things prepared for the young man. Just as our Leon comes, this hunky kid who really is pretty smart, I think.
And an aspiring writer. Liam is an inspiring writer.
Right. Who's, unfortunately, he has J.M. Sinclair as his idol, literally.
He does, and he jumps at the chance with very little consideration to be a tutor to their son Bertie.
Yes.
And help him pass his entrance exams into Oxford.
Yes.
That's the premise for him kind of breaking this hermetic seal on this family. And you know from storytelling in human history that nothing good is going to come of this.
And besides that, it's also an English lit, which must be just a bear in Oxford. So he's going to try. And I'm not sure he really could qualify. I think he needs the bump that Liam's going to give him. And Dad's reaction will be?
Well, you learn a lot about at the first night dinner.
Oh, what a great dinner.
Where the family dynamics are clearly spelled out. And all of the dialogue, I will say, and this is a first-time feature film script from Alex
McKeith,
McKeith.
right?
And it's also a first-time director in Alice Troughton.
Exactly.
So it's very well, many of the scenes are very well crafted. The first night dinner scene particularly, where every piece of dialogue has underlying tension and underlying meaning that sets the stage for the dynamics between all the main characters.
And I often tell you, when you and I frequently have movies like this, I've always picked the art movies for you, and invariably we'll have a dinner, and I'll go ecstatic over a depiction of a dinner, because we have low rent dinners in my family, but they're important, and for Italians, they're very important.
Absolutely.
And so you are so right that this, once the camera settles down to this, you say, all right, I'm going to enjoy myself.
And that is true, and it's really the dialogue that I think carries this film along with the stellar cast, because it, as a first-time effort from the director and the screenwriter, it is flawed. It's not a perfect script. It's not a perfect film, but there's enough meat on the bone, and my friends that saw it with me, and shout out to Susan, Stevie, Barb, and Donna, and the two women who stopped to talk to us afterwards about their impressions
Oh,
of the
good,
film,
good,
Carolyn
yeah.
and Kathy. We all agreed that it was just this slow drip of intrigue from the pointed dialogue all the way through to the final climactic scenes of tension development and trying to guess who was really teaching who in terms of the lesson or lessons in life. And so there was enough there to really hold your attention and make for an enjoyable.
And there are people who will call this a slow burn thriller.
And I would agree with
Yeah,
that.
and I think that's a really good interpretation of it. And it is a thriller, because while you and I really like the conversation and we like the interaction and so on, it is also a thriller. There's something, I think maybe even as you were hinting, there's something insidious going on here. We don't know exactly where it is, and we know who's going to pull it off, but it's not good.
It's not good. And it's not a thriller in the sense that you have this constant sense of, dread, like you might with other types of films in the genre. It's more intrigue as to trying to figure out which character or characters are going to triumph in the end.
Yes.
And credit to the script and the direction in that some people may find how it ends surprising.
Yes, and I guess there's two tiers for me. There's the one that's the intellectual sabotage that fomented by J.M. Sinclair and draping down to everybody. You have his wife, played by Julie Delpy, Helene, who's really almost enigmatic, but there's something about her that's not safe.
Yes, and there are hints of that in some of the scenes.
Yeah.
Where, particularly shortly after Liam arrives to tutor Bertie, she approaches him to employ him outside the agency contract that has brought him to their home.
Right.
And he signs an agreement and a non-disclosure agreement without reading them and without an attorney, which I had to suspend my belief that somebody that smart would do that. But he's also, it's somewhat believable in terms of he's a young, hungry writer looking for his first success.
Yeah.
And he's now in the presence and in the home of his greatly admired J.M. Sinclair, who he holds above all other authors. So
there are so many nice little touches. For instance, when I'm thinking of Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, where the director frames Liam, in this case, behind a window. And that window in this gigantic mansion happened strategically to be placed so that he could see into the bedroom of J.M. Sinclair and Helene. And some of the kind of insidious action that goes on, he sees from there. And in the case of Helene and her husband, Helene looks over and smiles at him, knowing that he's looking through the wood. It's great. As we said, this is not good. I don't.
Yeah.
And I think some of the nature of the thriller for me is what's going to happen to Bertie. Bertie seems to be the most vulnerable of anybody here, and yet he's the reason Liam's coming.
Mhm.
And very soon you recognize that J.M. Sinclair is not interested in anybody else being successful for
Oh,
himself.
he's a narcissist, a complete narcissist.
Yes, he is.
But they're all trapped in this. You get the sense that, and one of the flaws I found in the script was there wasn't enough development about who Felix was in the family
Yes.
dynamic. I thought that could have made it a little stronger.
Very good point, right.
Because you have these three people trapped in their grief that J.M. Sinclair is trying to control. He's very controlling to begin with, but now he's controlling the narrative with regards to his now deceased son and how they mourn and grieve for Felix. And the dynamic that creates of bringing Liam into it really does create, I think, the narrative tension. But I think it could have been stronger.
Yeah, I wholeheartely agree. Well, I'm very satisfied with it. You can see where there are those deficiencies. Well, Mary Arena, goodness, we just started, so fortunately, our audience can look to Double Take, our podcast. If they go to WCBE or the podcast experience, they can hear us blather just a bit more.
And I hope they will.
And I hope they will. So right now, Mary, what do you suggest to our audience?
This is an independent film that has found distribution in the theater system, and I would recommend seeing it in the theater.
Yes, and if you like movies, now liking movies doesn't mean it's because you like Indiana Jones. This is a real movie.
Well, it's a real crafted
Yes.
movie, and it's got an original script, and as we said, it's a first-time director, first-time screenwriter bringing a feature film into the theater, and it gives you hope for the future about theater when these types of projects are able to move forward and into the distribution realm.
It's called The Lesson, and there's more to be learned in our podcast.